When the message arrived on Central Command's encrypted network, few believed it at first. The notion of a planned genocide across hundreds of star systems seemed unfathomable, yet the evidence was compelling enough to merit discussion behind sealed doors and static dampened walls. The intelligence packet contained flight logs showing massive shipments of weapon components into the uncharted edges of the neighborious sector. It charted suspicious gatherings of military figures, not from the usual fractious warlords, but rather from a far more organized, clandestine alliance. And though the uniforms bore no standard insignia, their faces and personal identifiers suggested involvement from the highest echelons of a certain breakaway faction. If true, it was by far the most destructive threat humanity and its allies had ever faced. Commander Eliana Graves was no stranger to rumor and false alarms. Nevertheless, this intelligence demanded swift, covert action. Rumors alone did not mobilize entire fleets, nor did they align shadowy corporate barons with rote generals. The complexities of the galaxy had taught her that well-coordinated reports are rarely empty illusions. She recognized in these details a pattern both chilling and precise, an objective that, if successful, would claim billions of lives. And in a universe already marked by centuries of conflict, letting it happen was unthinkable. The task now was to verify the truth and tear apart the perpetrator's secrecy from within. Eliana slid the classified tablets across her desk to her second-in-command, Jonas Aker, who had served with her for over a decade. Tall and spare, Jonas had navigated countless infiltration missions for the intelligence sector. He maintained a detached calm no matter the magnitude of the crisis at hand. The barest crease between his eyebrows gave away his concern as he read. "The staging grounds are apparently in the outer rings of Niborius sector," Jonas said quietly, scanning the data. "But the weapons shipments are coming from factories in the Regalex Crescent. That might mean they're setting up production lines out of legitimate corporate facilities. 5 corporations are mentioned here. None have publicly known ties to the rogue faction, but these logs suggest otherwise." Eliana folded her arms. "We've suspected for months that the Jacobs Consortium was funneling arms somewhere behind the scenes. But these new names tied in with Jacobs? This is deeper than just an illegal deal. It's a mass mobilization. I suspect key leaders within the Council worlds are either complicit or have turned a blind eye." Jonas nodded, still skimming. "They'll be expecting infiltration, but we need more than guesswork. We must secure proof that these shipments are forging a doomsday arsenal. Without solid evidence, we can't rally the coalition. They'd demand unstoppable proof of this plot." A hush settled, broken only by the hum of air recyclers. Eliana leaned forward. "We'll send a specialized cell. Small, tight-knit, operationally flexible. No official sanction. They go in, uncover the truth, retrieve or expose the data, and get out. Then we confront the threat as an entire alliance. But we have to do it quietly, or the conspirators will accelerate their plans." Jonas set the tablet down. "I know just the team." 2 days later, the infiltration cell gathered in an unmarked hangar far beneath the official starport. Dim overhead lights bathed the gleaming hull of the covert frigate in a bluish hue. Though outwardly nondescript, the ship bristled with concealed modifications. Advanced stealth plating, sensor masking arrays, and sublight silencers for quiet infiltration. The individuals who stepped aboard were equally inconspicuous from the outside. A varied group each, carefully selected for expertise, loyalty, and resilience. The mission's lead agent, Captain Aurelia Hayes, adjusted her gloves after stowing her bag in the cabin. She had the unwavering focus of a once-celebrated pilot-turned-intelligence operative. Her short, dark hair and unassuming uniform let her blend easily. Her real weapon, though, was her ability to negotiate the darkest corners of any spaceport or planet and find leads. Aurelia's partner, Samir Voss, was an encryption expert who had cracked the codes of several top militant groups in the frontier territories. The lines of code in his mind were sharper weapons than pulses from a rifle. He had a quiet demeanor and seldom spoke unless he had something transformative to share. Then, there was Talia Bren, infiltration specialist. She had survived infiltration scenarios on war-torn worlds with remarkable calm, rumored to have once bypassed an entire planetary security system in a single night. A hint of stoicism tinged her gaze, but her skill was unmatched. Finally, Adric West, the youngest on the squad, was known for uncanny cunning and forging alliances where none seemed possible. He had grown up in the underbelly of the galaxy's black markets and understood the criminals' language and the primal fears they stood in a circle, forging a bond of solidarity before their departure. Commander Graves addressed them via holocom from a secure room. "We have unconfirmed intelligence that a rogue faction is stockpiling components for weapons capable of wiping out entire star systems. Jacob's consortium and several allied corporations appear heavily involved. We've got traces of an engineered pathogen or a technology that can harness subspace anomalies, aimed at mass genocide on a scale unimaginable. You have one priority: verify this threat and gather what proof you can. Then exfiltrate. We'll handle the rest. Good luck." No official recognition from command meant the infiltration team had to rely on stealth and subterfuge from the start. The first destination was Regulon Station in the Regulex Crescent, where Jacobs maintained a corporate presence. Rumors hinted that the station was also home to a black market warehouse dealing in unknown items. If there was a secret supply line funneling murder machines into Naborius, that station would be the best lead. On arrival, they discovered the station's decrepit corridors stank of ammonia and unfiltered recycling fluids. It served as a crossroads of trade, both legitimate and forbidden, the perfect place to blend in. Aurelia took the lead, stepping into the station's labyrinth of neon-lit stalls and metal catwalks, eyes scanning for any sign of Jacobs's clandestine operation. Stray neon signs buzzed overhead, mechanical hawkers barked advertisements for synthetic stimulants, salvage vendors displayed battered hull plates from nameless craft, lost in the void. Periodically, masked enforcers marched by, carrying shock rifles that threatened to discharge their menacing hum at the slightest provocation. All the while, an unseen hush suggested that bigger deals than contraband spices or cheap stolen weaponry were unfolding behind locked bulkheads. Aurelia motioned for Talia to scout, while Samir and Adric hung back. They had heard rumors of a lower-level scrapyard, rumored to be a front for Jacobs's discreet shipments. Their objective? Confirm if weapon components were being sent off station. Talia soon slipped into the cracks of the station's infrastructure. Despite the looming threat, she maintained a composure that belied the tension. Rather than barge into restricted sections, the team worked methodically. Samir set up a discreet hack into the station's terminal, bypassing archaic firewalls. Adric quietly questioned merchants about shipments and starship manifests. Aurelia mapped the security patrol routes so they could slip into the underlevel. Their synergy was the product of rigorous training and a shared knowledge that billions of lives might hang in the balance. Late in the station's artificial night cycle, as foot traffic ebbed, they made their move. Aurelia and Samir descended a rusted spiral staircase into an unlabeled corridor. Signs of tampering were everywhere. Newly replaced cameras, fresh guard postings. They ducked behind cargo crates. Samir plugged a data spike into a maintenance panel, hooking into the surveillance feed. On his handheld display, images of a restricted bay flickered into focus, revealing shipping containers stamped with the Jacobs logo. At first glance, they were innocuous, but thermal scans indicated dangerously high-energy devices inside. Aurelia's eyebrows narrowed. "That's a brand new cargo cluster. The station logs show it arrived last week, supposedly carrying agricultural equipment. But my guess is that it's something else entirely." Samir nodded grimly. "I've run the heat signatures through the ballistic library. Some match the profiles for advanced reactor cores. Others are consistent with xenobiological containment units, maybe for storing pathogens, confirming it might be enough to blow this conspiracy open. But they needed to know where the containers were bound." Summer typed furiously, retrieving shipping records. The data trail scrambled at the final step. "Whoever set up this route, knew how to hide it. A single clue popped up. A reference to Gethran warehouse in the Naborius sector. One mention only, but it was enough to confirm that the questionable hardware was headed toward the rumored staging ground. Then, footsteps echoed along the corridor. Aurelia flicked off her small flashlight. Samir tucked away his device. They pressed themselves flat against the wall. A pair of uniformed guards approached, their boots clanking against the grated metal. The team froze, silent and ready. One guard tapped a code into a security panel, presumably to confirm station logs. A moment later, the guards turned and marched back in the direction they came, never noticing the infiltration team. Aurelia exhaled slowly. "We can't linger. We have the shipping manifest. Let's go." Information in hand, they fled Regulon Station under cover of a false flight plan. The next step was infiltration into the Naborius sector. Given rumors about the presence of formidable mercenary patrols, the team had to proceed with extreme caution. Driving their stealth frigate through uncharted jump points, they evaded standard trade routes, hoping to avoid detection. The Naborius sector was notorious for swirling cosmic dust clouds, random gravitational eddies, and the presence of half-mapped planetoids, but the team's advanced nav system charted a route forward. After a tense 2-day journey through the slipstream, they arrived near a small, nameless planetoid that sensors identified as geologically stable enough to land. From there, they planned a reconnaissance of the Gethran warehouse, setting the frigate down amid a field of black, jagged rock. They immediately felt the harshness of the environment. Thin atmosphere, swirling dust storms, temperature gradients that could destroy poorly shielded equipment. Still, it was the perfect vantage point. They holed up inside a rocky ravine, scanning for any sign of the warehouse or associated facilities. On the third day, Talia spotted something on the horizon, a large structure carved from reflective metal. Its design suggested it had been built to evade detection. Triangular arrays of communications dishes perched on the roof, and a ring of defensive turrets encircled the facility. She relayed the coordinates. Aurelia methodically set up vantage scopes. Through zoom lenses, they observed cargo shuttles landing under the watchful eyes of uniformed guards. Emblazed on each guard's shoulder was a 3-pronged insignia, one not seen in standard corporate or interstellar militaries. "Those uniforms," Aurelia remarked, handing the scope to Adric. "They matched the breakaway faction we had on file, disavowed from official ranks after that civil fiasco on Aveline Prime. They call themselves the Vieran Initiative now." Their rumored leader, General Drenell, was said to have extreme xenophobic ideologies. "So they've got a base of operations big enough for major expansions?" Adric murmured. "Not good. I see shipments being taken inside. Could be anything from munitions to biotech materials. We need to get in." That evening, they planned a nighttime infiltration. Talia, clothed in light-absorbent gear, was to scale the outer walls, disable security sensors, then open a side hatch for the rest. They waited until the planet's slow rotation angled the facility's main sensor towers away. Talia sprinted across the rocky terrain, her footsteps muted by the swirling dust. She reached the warehouse's tall metal perimeter with breathless efficiency. A grappling device latched onto grooves in the plating, and she swiftly climbed. Electric blue lines danced along the top, showing an active security field. She rummaged through a specialized toolkit. With the deftness of a concert pianist, she spliced wires and shorted out the field's power relay in seconds. Then she swung down to a service hatch. A quick piece of code input into the panel, and the hatch popped open. Her voice crackled over comms. "Path is clear." Aurelia, Samir, and Adric joined her inside. The corridor beyond was dimly lit by flickering overhead lights. The faint hum of industrial equipment reverberated through the walls. Step by cautious step, they advanced deeper. Passing towering crates stenciled with bizarre designations. A few read, "Reactant Chamber, Authorized Personnel Only." Others had inscriptions of biologically critical warnings. Samir snapped images with a portable scanner. The entire corridor smelled of engine grease and chemicals. On the next level down, they found a sealed laboratory behind tinted glass. Samir's eyes locked on a glyph-coded symbol near the door. a symbol associated with advanced biotech. With practiced efficiency, he connected a hacking device to the console. "They're using robust encryption protocols here. This might take a minute," he whispered. While Samir tinkered, Aurelia and Talia kept watch. A distant clank of footsteps spurred them to find quick cover behind crates. Two scientists in lab coats, accompanied by a guard, approached the lab door. One scientist held a data slate. The guard pressed a code into the panel, and the door slid open, letting them through. A few seconds later, the door hissed shut and locked again. Samir lifted an eyebrow, beckoning the others closer. "They updated the logs. I can piggyback on that infiltration. If we can get inside, we'll see what they're working on, maybe get direct proof. That's the real gold." Aurelia nodded. "Do it." He tapped a few more keys, prompting the security console to reflect an authorized ID for the infiltration team. The lab door slid open. They stepped inside soundlessly, bracing for the unknown. The hush of the laboratory was profoundly eerie. Rows of containment chambers lined the walls, each storing vials of ominous-looking substances. Holographic readouts detailed molecular structures, half of which flashed warnings about hostility levels. Concussive weapon designs and subspace destabilizers, as some with the capacity to annihilate entire star systems, were displayed on large screens. Amid the chaotic swirl of data, an image displayed a particular schematic. It showed a warhead fitted with a quantum flux device at its core. The notes mentioned something about a retrovirus payload that could accelerate planetary collapse. Aurelia's blood ran cold. She recognized such technology as an extreme threat, deliberately engineered subspace compression that could fragment a planet's core. Billions would perish in an instant. In the corner of the lab's interface, a list of target worlds scrolled by: Eladar, Sparecrux, New Taraska, Ayaton, Rayloth 4. Population figures accompanied each entry. The combined total soared well into the billions. Talia cursed under her breath, her stoic demeanor cracking. "This plot is more horrific than we imagined." Adric scrolled to the end of the target list. "They're selecting high-level planets, each with millions or billions of inhabitants. It's systematic genocide." Samir quickly started copying data onto an encrypted drive for proof. They needed to show the coalition that these conspirators had advanced beyond theory and were nearing operational readiness. Meanwhile, Aurelia and Talia scanned the room, looking for anything further that might reveal how soon the attack would commence. Suddenly, a voice boomed across the lab. "Who are you?" The infiltration team spun to see a man in a crisp uniform stepping out from a side door. An emblem on his chest identified him as Dr. Eldon Marr, one of Jacobs's rumored lead scientists. He stared in disbelief. "How did you get in here? Guard!" Before the scientist could finish, Talia fired a stun bolt. Blue arcs of energy rippled around him, dropping him unconscious. Samir yanked the data drive. "We have enough evidence to convict them 1,000 times over," he said, voice steady despite the surge of adrenaline. "We need to get out." Alarms blared. The lights abruptly shifted to a pulsing red. An emergency lockdown triggered. Bulkheads began slamming down throughout the facility. Aurelia signaled the squad to scatter and regroup at the side hatch. She sprinted down corridors with Samir in tow, while Talia and Adric attempted a different route. Shouts of "Guards!" filled the air, and the thud of boots rattled the metal floors. The team's careful infiltration was shattered, replaced by an all-out scramble for escape. Racing past crates and supply stations, Aurelia ducked behind a steel pillar when automatic turrets descended from the ceiling. Laser pulses streaked across the walkway, smashing crates into fragments and sending sparks showering. Samir seized the moment of cover to rewire a nearby control panel, turning the turrets off. They dashed onward, heartbeats pounding like war drums. At a junction, they nearly ran into a patrol of 4 armed guards. Aurelia fired quick bursts from her sidearm, disabling 2. Samir ducked a hail of retaliation, returning shots to down the others. Sirens wailed in overlapping frequencies, intensifying the chaos. The infiltration stealth was clearly over, But their mission now was simply to leave alive, with the data as the key to stopping the genocide. Finally, they reached the side hatch. Talia and Adric were already there, holding 2 security officers at bay. Adric had pinned one to the ground, while Talia kept her blaster leveled at the other. The second surrendered, with a tremor in his voice. "Please don't shoot." Adrian disarmed him with a sweep. "We're leaving. Don't try anything." Samir darted to the control panel to open the hatch. "It's jammed!" He typed furiously, attempting to override the lockdown. Damn, they jammed external panels. I'll have to rig a manual bypass. Talia scanned the corridor behind them. More guards would be coming. Hurry. Samir tugged open a side box in the wall, revealing a tangle of cables. His hands moved in a blur, pulling wires, crossing circuits, overriding the jam. The hatch motor whirred but stuck. Gunfire sounded from a distant corridor, drawing closer. Aurelia and Talia crouched in defensive positions, returning fire whenever a guard's silhouette slid into view. The corridor lit up with muzzle flashes, footsteps pounding closer. As sparks showered from the override panel, Samir gritted his teeth. Finally, a green light illuminated. With a metallic groan, the hatch slid open, letting in a gust of stale desert air. Talia lobbed a mini flash grenade, and they dove out into the planetary night. They sprinted across the desolate terrain, a hail of pulse boats whistling past them. Shields flared around their suits, draining precious power. Dust storms whipped grit into their eyes. At last, the stealth frigate came into view, concealed amid the rocky outcroppings. They bolted up the loading ramp, which closed behind them. Engines roared to life. Aurelia scrambled to the cockpit and punched the throttle. The frigate lifted off, narrowly dodging the blasts of ground-based turrets. Then, with a shudder, it soared into the upper atmosphere, sensors jamming the facility's tracking as best they could. Safely back in slipspace, the 4 infiltrators slumped in their seats. Their breathing was ragged, minds still grappling with the intensity of the escape. Yet there was a measure of triumph in their exhaustion. The data Samir had stolen was incontrovertible. Evidence of an operational plan to commit genocide on billions of innocent lives. Aurelia locked the data within multiple encryption layers to prevent interception. The next question was how to get the evidence to the coalition. The conspirators likely had eyes everywhere, especially after this infiltration. They couldn't rely on usual channels. A direct approach to the council worlds might only tip off the traitors. Worse, many powerful individuals might be complicit, or at least dangerously indifferent. Meanwhile, a coded message lit up on the ship's console. Aurelia recognized Jonas Aker's encryption signature. She read the message. Immediate meeting arranged at Nadir Outpost. High Command presence confirmed. Must preserve secrecy. Rendezvous within 3 standard days. She shared the details with the team. Nadir Outpost was hidden deep within an asteroid belt near Earth's second colony planet, a place used for top-secret negotiations and covert summits. If they could reach that meeting undetected, they might present their findings directly to key allies and hamper the conspirators' ability to bury the truth. It was a perilous journey, rife with the fear of hidden trackers. Nonetheless, 70 hours later, they arrived at Nadir Outpost. Beyond a web of tumbling asteroids lay a station built into the largest rock, barely distinguishable from its surrounding. The infiltration team transmitted a coded handshake, docking clamps engaged. As they disembarked, Jonas greeted them in a hallway lined with unmarked crates and vehicles. Beside him stood Commander Graves, her expression tense. Jonas waved them forward. "We've arranged a secluded chamber. We need to see your findings." In minutes, they were in a reinforced chamber used for strategic briefings. Samir projected the stolen files onto a secure holodisplay. Images played. Schematics for subspace bombs. Mass retrovirus deployment plans. Logs detailing an extensive network of industrial production across multiple star systems. The target list soared by, populated by billions of unsuspecting lives. A cold fury settled over Commander Graves. "This is monstrous," she whispered. A rogue faction isn't the right term. It's the greatest threat to life as we know it. We can't let them carry this out. Jonas scrolled further, pausing at a personal message from Dr. Eldon Marr to the Jacobs Board of Directors. Look at this. They've scheduled a demonstration in less than a month on a test world with minimal population. They plan to confirm the weapon's destructive capacity, then roll it out on heavily populated planets. This is their final countdown. Graves clenched her fists. We must rally fleets, but we have to be precise. They've infiltrated many corridors of power. We must find unwavering allies we can trust. Then we strike first, dismantling their manufacturing lines and capturing key conspirators. Aurelia felt a surge of determination, and we must rescue the target worlds. Whether we deploy infiltration teams to sabotage from within or coordinate a large-scale offensive, we must ensure these weapons never reach activation. We have the proof. We expose everything to the public, to the Council, to every planet in the Alliance. Let the conspirators scurry into the light where they can't hide. Word soon spread discreetly among trusted circles of the leaders of various species, from humans to the reptilian Zelkar, from the crystalline Oridian to the telepathic Pharaon, gathered in hidden war rooms. They studied the infiltration team's evidence, aghast at the scale of the threat. Vows were made in hushed tones, to stand together, to fight for the sanctity of life. No matter how many corporate cronies or Black Ops militaries had joined this genocidal scheme. In coordinated secrecy, Allied fleets began converging. Ships from dozens of star systems assembled at remote rally points, their identities masked from standard transmissions. Naval strategists pored over route calculations. Intelligence analysts singled out key manufacturing hubs to target. At the heart of it all stood Aurelia, Talia, Samir, and Adric, champions of the infiltration mission that sparked the call to arms. Yet the conspirators were not idle. The Jacobs Consortium and the Viren Initiative realized the infiltration had compromised them. Their muscle-bound fleets consolidated around the Naborius sector, daring any force to approach. Dr. Marr accelerated preparations for the demonstration, hoping a swift success would demoralize the Alliance. The galaxy braced for a confrontation of terrifying magnitude. Ships from both sides streaked across starlit voids, converging near Velamor, a barren planetoid designated as the conspirators' test site. The Allied fleet arrived in perfect synchronization. Frigates with stealth technology flanked dreadnoughts bristling with advanced weaponry. Cruisers of varied design, from the insectoid structures of the Zelkar to the sleek forms of human exofighters, mixed in formation. Red alert signals pulsed on every console. The conspirators' flotilla stood on the other side, a wall of capital ships sporting the three-pronged insignia. At their center was an enormous carrier, presumably the staging point for the Doomsday device. A swirl of fighters circled protectively, and the Jacobs corporate crest was visible right below the Viren emblem. Communication lines crackled with final negotiations, but soon it became clear the enemy had no intention of surrender. Commander Graves' face appeared on fleet-wide communications. All Allied vessels, we face a threat unlike anything in history. We fight now for every innocent life that stands on the brink of annihilation. Hold strong, and may our unity carry us to victory. A thunderous volley signaled the start. Missiles streaked from the conspirators' ships, piercing the darkness in fiery arcs. Allied interceptors soared forward, unleashing flurries of laser fire. The clash began in earnest. Blazing beams slashed across vacuum. Explosions lit the cosmos with violent brilliance. Aboard a coalition dreadnought, Aurea piloted an advanced fighter wing. Samir served as lead encryption officer in the command center, coordinating target data. Talia and Adric were spearheading infiltration squads on the ground, seizing enemy outposts to sabotage the Doomsday weapon. Each pressed on with unwavering resolve. Through drifting debris and volley after volley of relentless fire, the Allied fleet managed to isolate the colossal carrier. Under continuous bombardment, its shields flickered. The conspirators desperately launched counterattacks, but the Allied numbers were bolstered by unity. Aurelia's fighter wing delivered punishing strikes on the carrier's engines, while in the command center, Samir jammed the enemy's targeting systems. Within the battered hull of the carrier, Talia and Adric led a furious incursion to find the quantum flux warhead at the heart of the test. In an unlit corridor near the carrier's main bay, Talia's infiltration group advanced, exchanging furious fire with entrenched defenders. Sparks flew from damaged panels, throwing the hallway into strobe-like chaos. The group forced their way toward the sealed chamber housing the warhead, a device surrounded by swirling energy fields and glowing with a sickly green luminescence. Dr. Marr stood at the control console, barely holding on to calm as Talia's team burst in. He mashed a series of codes in a final frenzied attempt to detonate it. Adric dashed forward, unleashing a stun bolt aimed at Marr's hand. The scientist recoiled, but not before he activated the final countdown. The warhead's timers glowed on the overhead display. 3 minutes to catastrophic subspace ignition. Warning klaxons shrieked. Talia gritted her teeth. Adric, subdue him. I'll handle the device. She rushed to the console. The swirling energies roiled behind a protective barrier. She had minimal time. Each second brought the doomsday weapon closer to unleashing devastation across the entire sector, not just Velamor. Adric grappled Ma. The scientist snarled, flailing to reach a sidearm. With a swift knockout jab, Adra subdued him. Meanwhile, Talia's shaking hands danced over the console. Readouts scrolled by in a language she only partially understood. Summoning her infiltration experiences, she tied in Samir's remote hacking link. Samir, I need the override codes, now! Back in the command center, Samir typed feverishly. Sensors beeped with chaotic readings from the battlefield, but his focus zeroed in on Talia's feed. Lines of code streamed across, attempting to override. Too many encrypted layers. We have less than 2 minutes. Stand by for a forced meltdown. He hammered in strings of code, but an alarm signaled the meltdown would require a controlled subspace inversion. I need you to shut down the quantum flux stabilizer from your side, Talia. It's deeper in the device's hardware systems. Sending instructions. Talia followed Samir's guidance. Her gloved hands ripped open a plating panel and found a cluster of blinking nodes. She yanked out the red major circuit, bridging 2 wires with a small bypass tool. With an angry hum, the flux stabilizer flickered. The countdown stuttered from 1 minute to a horrifying final 20 seconds. Now the meltdown lock is in your hands, Samir said. Hit it! She slammed the meltdown command on her console. The warhead crackled, surging with pent-up energy. The lights flared, and for a split second, it seemed the device might detonate anyway. Then, with a cascade of bright arcs, the subspace field collapsed inward. A wave of sparks burst through the chamber, faltering as the meltdown resolution took effect. The countdown froze at 5 seconds, then blinked out. Silence. The warhead stood inert, robbed of its nightmarish power. Panting, Talia collapsed against the console, heart hammering. The infiltration group quickly sealed Dr. Marr in restraints. Over comms, Samir's voice broke with relief. The doomsday device is disabled. Repeat, the weapon is neutralized. All Allied forces converge and subdue the conspirators. The final push was swift. The crippled carrier's defenders, reeling from the loss of their ultimate weapon, surrendered. Other enemy warships withdrew or were captured. The Jacobs Consortium's top officials were apprehended in a wave of arrests across multiple star systems. The threat that had once loomed over billions like a shadow of doom was silenced. In the days that followed, the infiltration team's revelations and the ensuing Allied victory sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Citizens learned how close they had come to annihilation at the hands of ruthless conspirators. Exposés ran relentlessly on every major network. Survivors of earlier wars found renewed hope in the possibility of cooperation triumphing over genocide. Galactic courts convened, presided over by leaders from multiple species. The Jacobs Consortium's corporate empire crumbled, its assets seized. Trial proceedings laid bare how a small group of ambitious elitists nearly orchestrated mass murder on an unimaginable scale. General Drunel, captured in a final stand, faced a tribunal for war crimes. Dr. Marr was indicted for crimes against nature, his claims of following orders falling on deaf ears. In the Alliance enclaves, leaders championed an era of renewed vigilance. Safeguards were increased around weapons research, corporate oversight soared, and diplomatic channels expanded to thwart extremist factions. A sense of unity, maybe fleeting, maybe lasting, washed over billions. Planets like Eladar and Raloth 4 paused to reflect on their fragile safety, newly aware of how close their entire civilizations had come to extinction. For the infiltration team Aurelia, Talia, Samir, and Idrik, the galaxy's gratitude was quiet yet profound. They received no grand parades. Officially, their mission remained classified. But in whispers and behind closed doors, they knew they had done their duty. Separate paths beckoned. Aurelia considered returning to her pilot roots. Talia was offered a leadership role in advanced intelligence. Samir was invited to spearhead a new encryption bureau, and Adric eyed forging more alliances in the unstable frontiers. Yet, each carried the memory of that fateful mission, an unshakable testament to the power of resolute hearts when darkness loomed. Weeks later, Aurelia found herself standing on a quiet observation deck overlooking Earth's second colony planet. Through a wide window, she watched a sun set across rolling seas of copper-colored foliage, reminiscent of an older Earth. The sky glowed in oranges and violets, untainted by pollution or war. She recalled the labyrinth of corridors in Regalon Station, the frantic firefight on the laborious planetoid, the heart-stopping moment as Talia disabled the warhead. All of it felt surreal against this serene vista. Jonas approached from behind. "We did it," he said gently. "In another world, those seas might be vaporized, the life forms here erased. Thanks to your team, that's not our reality." Aurelia turned. "It's a weird feeling, saving so many and yet feeling as though we only did what was necessary. It makes you realize how easily everything can slip away when the wrong people gain power." He nodded. "Evil thrives in shadows. Thanks to you, we've dragged it into the light. Billions owe you a debt, even if they never learn your name." She smiled faintly. "I'm just relieved we caught it in time. I hope we won't have to do it again. But if we do, I'll answer the call." Jonas placed a hand on her shoulder. "No doubt about that. Get some rest, Captain." She stood there for a while after he left, gazing out at the calm planet below. In her mind, she could almost hear the grateful whispers of countless souls who would never know the horrors that had almost befallen them. It was enough. Sometimes, in the quiet aftermath of victory, the universe's silent gratitude was the greatest reward any defender could ask for. Aurelia inhaled the crisp air of the observation deck, letting the tension of the recent days melt away. Evil had been exposed, a genocide prevented. For at least one moment, in this vast, ever-shifting galaxy, peace held sway. If darkness rose again, and it inevitably would, she and others like her were ready to confront it, to stand guard in the night so that billions more could live in the light.